This episode is sponsored by. And I'm just kidding.
Pfizer. Wait, is that the new one? I thought they have.
No, it's just the classic. I always feel like I'm required to. There's a couple things I have to do whenever I come back to Pittsburgh. I got to get an icy light. I got to make a Sheets run, and I got to get a permani sandwich.
Oh yeah, Sheets.
It's the trifecta, right?
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
The only one I would say is a must is the permani sandwich one. I'll agree with you there.
Well, welcome back,
Thanks.
Matt Nichols. It's been
Yes, sir.
It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute. You've now. I'm trying to think. That's what I was trying to think of a way to introduce the show, just because we have so many topics. It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been 2 crazy weeks.
Yes, let's jump.
And almost a crazy year since I think I've been last back on. I'm a resident of Florida now.
Were you
crazy?
Were you on before or after you? Oh, you're resident of Florida now. I was going to say, were you before or after Ukraine? The invasion began.
Well, I think my last one was after.
After.
I think.
Because this was I guess 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Was when that started.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah, over 2 years. It's crazy because it started end of February or early March in 22, right?
We just hit the anniversary.
Yeah.
Like a month ago.
It's wild.
And that since then, but not since Israel.
No, definitely not since then.
No, that the October 7th last year, 2023.
Yeah. No, I have not been on since then. So
you're
Lots of
relocated
crazy
in
stuff.
Florida?
Yeah, I'm down in Jacksonville now, which is great.
How'd that all work out? What are you doing down there?
Well, I just graduated from school and had a couple connections and got a job down there in real estate. So I'm an attorney and I got a job doing real estate law mostly down there. So some good stuff. Yeah, I met some great people. Work at a great company right now. It's a really good setup. And no state income taxes. No, and great thing about the city of Jacksonville. No income taxes, right? So no local or state income tax.
And no long-term capital gains either, right?
Which is great, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, during the DeSantis-Trump primary, where were you on that?
Well, so my thing is I was definitely on Trump is just going to win, so why
fight?
Why
prolong?
fight?
Give
Yeah.
Nikki a platform, and
why waste money,
Christie,
millions of dollars, down the drain that could have been used in the general,
exactly.
right? And I think that as we have seen, but as I kind of called a little bit earlier, it was just you were never going to win because. Maybe in if it was just DeSantis versus Haley, that would have been one thing, right? And that would be an interesting primary because you have more of the conservative base versus the more moderate base and see how that goes. But you're not going to come at Trump, try and get Trump's base while he's still on the ballot.
And getting persecuted for charges.
Yeah.
Or 4 separate indictments, 9, just insane.
So I want your opinion on that.
Oh, dear.
By the way, for our audience, this is our resident legal counsel. If you're going to come at us legally, this is the guy who's going to defend us. I don't care. You're probably not going to come at us for real estate stuff, but
well, sure. Hopefully, doesn't get
Trump,
that far.
Trump,
they're coming at Trump for real estate.
So because I just saw a headline this morning that Jon Stewart got pegged with.
Oh yeah, because he overvalued his thing too. Yeah,
that's what real estate is. You want your job is to promote your property.
Well, and, the other thing too about the New York case specifically is I forget if it was the mayor or somebody in the DA's office right after they came out and basically said after they came out with the fine and everything.
I think it was 370.
So 355, some insane amount of millions that I'll never have.
Bond.
So
yeah.
But they literally had to make an announcement oh hey, rest of Wall Street and stuff, don't worry, this is not a normal thing. They had to make that as a separate announcement because the guy who does the Shark
Kevin O'Leary and Mark Cuban both
spoke out and said, you guys are making New York a business.
Yeah, like a hellhole, basically.
Why would you gamble on taking property here if
they can take it away at any time, or destroy you basically for doing stuff that everybody does. But I feel like that's kind of the thing, right? We have laws on the books that in theory are good, but it's all about selective prosecution these days, and so it's just a difficult world to be in, and it's bad also because one side just says it, they just say basically, hey, we're going to selectively prosecute, and
the SDNY.
Yeah,
that is a sketchy. You're getting persecuted by them. Things disappear. Things get made up. You got that Judge Ergwan, Letitia James. Could you imagine if they put the bars on Trump bar property? If they went to Trump Towers and repoed them, what optics that would have been?
I hope they'd be gold bars at least.
So what I don't understand though is how do you repo something that's been paid for? Like even if he overinflated in what he paid a wrong interest rate, he would have overpaid in taxes, correct?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not even sure how exactly I'm not exactly sure on like what the specifics of the charge, but it could, it could also have something to do with if you overvaluate, your properties and stuff like that, and then you use that as leverage for maybe negotiating or use it to get loans and stuff like that, especially because what a lot of wealthy people do is they, the money that they spend is not actually money they own or have on hand. They just take loans out and then they'll like use either their stock accounts or their properties as like collateral. And so that could be part of the charge.
But if the bank got paid back, I don't understand.
That was what I was talking.
It's the principle, man.
And that's what when I was saying Letitia James becoming real estate is essentially because it was a victimless crime. Yeah. New York, the prosecutor, the attorney general going after him was going to basically be in charge of selling his building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, if it came to that, basically, yeah.
It was like, how does that work out? That was where, like, you start the Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, a bunch of people kind of came out and were like, listen, guys, if this is the kind of things you're going to be exposed to if you buy business in New York.
And when it recently got reduced, right? So like 130 or something like that.
The news story is Monday, it was taken from 370 to like 150.
Okay.
And Trump said, I can cover that, we're good.
Yeah.
I want to see him paid in pennies. If I ever owed the government $150 million, I just buy up all the pennies and get
giant sacks, with dollar signs on
bricks, trucks of copper. Bring it in. It's like, you want your money back, New York City? Have it. You got all the copper.
And the funny thing is, I could totally see him doing something like that because he did make that comment, where they were like, "How are you going to pay for it?" And he just turned around and goes, "Cash,
cash." It's like, all right,
cash. You pay with cash.
It's a totally illegitimate, totally corrupt process. And then after that, his Truth Social.
Well, that's the other thing too that was very interesting.
DJT's a stock.
Yeah.
Cash sign DJT.
And now it's making like
$6 billion.
Yeah, a bunch of money off of that. So
after CNN ran a week, broke Dawn, can't get his pennies together to pay his little $400 million bail. All right. Now Dawn's $6 billion. He just got to wait, I think, like 90 days or something.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure what the rules are, but
is that what happened?
He took a SPAC. He took a SPAC to a actual something you can trade on the
stock exchange.
Yeah. And once he did that, that is DJT. Donald Trump, like worldwide,
worldwide.
You're betting on Trump, and it's trading. I think at like 60 or 70. Right now, it went up from like 30 or 25 when it was just SPAC. So it's like.
So the Russians are just pumping money.
Exactly. That's exactly who's doing it. That's exactly who they're saying.
I don't even know. Are they like legally allowed to with all the sanctions? Even if they wanted to, like. I don't know, man.
Could be China.
Could be.
China's allowed to do whatever they want.
That's true. Well, that's very true.
But before VP, do you want to do TikToks? This whole ban,
the TikTok ban. Sure.
I'm curious to see what your stance on that is because I'm not a TikTok fan. I don't like this law.
Sure. So in terms of the federal law, because I know that Florida also just passed a separate law that said you can't have any social media account, I believe, under the age of 14.
14.
Yeah.
A couple states did. I'm talking.
How do you feel about that?
Man, I don't. It's. To anybody who says like that you have like the freedom to do stuff like that. I mean, if you're under the age of 14, you're still a child, right? Like we have rules in place to protect children for specific reasons. And I mean, it's definitely been shown through, studies and, even like internal documents from Facebook and Meta and stuff like that. Like they admit this, like
Twitter files.
They curate their content to make it as addictive as possible. And so do I think that children should be exposed to that kind of stuff? Probably not. It's under the age of 14. Think about it. It's middle school.
But is that the government's job or is that the parents?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly,
you can control
that's a great question. And sorry, Craig, I keep like kind of leaning, so let me know if I'm like leaning too much. It's been a while since I've sat down. But
you can move the mic around and stuff.
Oh,
yeah. There's a better way for you. I do that a lot.
Right. It should not be the government's job, right? But the problem that we have today in our society in particular, but honestly throughout most of, especially the Western world, is that we are a society that lacks, purpose. We're a society that lacks any sort of internal moral structure. And when you don't have that kind of stuff outside of government, people then seek that through government, right? And so that's why, like John Adams, for example, said that in order to for the Constitution to stand, you need to have a moral and religious society, because the religion would be what would instill morals in people, and then they could run the civil society independent of the religion, but using the religious values that they were instilled with, right? So today the problem is that we don't have values, basically.
Happy Good Friday.
Yes, Happy Good Friday.
By
Yeah.
the way, it's
Yes, sir. Yeah. Definitely go to church on Sunday. Happy early Easter and all that. You know, it's gonna be a great weekend. And make sure you're eating fish today.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I broke that rule already. I think I had pepperoni. I had cheese. Yeah, I had pepperoni pizza.
Uh-oh.
Damn, go now.
That's okay, man. We can take you to church after, you know.
I've never
even it out, you know.
I've never done the fish thing.
I have my conspiracies on why they decided fish.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. But
no. But
that's an hour 2 segment. So stay in touch.
Hour.
Yeah,
we're gonna get into Hunter and P Diddy and all that fun stuff in the second half.
Yes,
First,
sir.
we'll get touched on.
But yeah, so I think once again, you know, that's the problem that we have today, is that both the right and the left, originally mostly the left, because they had lost God and religion and morals first, but now more so even on the right, you know, as we lose any sense of a moral fiber outside of politics, we seek moral fiber through politics, and that's unhealtly.
Or
and
individuality or narcissism.
or super individuality, right? And that leads to society
TQIA2S plus.
And when that leads to society, you know, that is it's untenable, because that's what leads to government being too overactive, right, at the end of the day. So having said all that,
So TikTok, whether it should be banned in every state,
I mean,
by Congress,
I generally lean toward yes, probably, yeah, especially
across the board,
especially because right now it's owned by a Chinese company, right? So even from a national security perspective, right, you can look at it from that end and say, you know, we have this foreign-owned company that basically has access to nearly every American's phone. There's no way that can be a good thing for national security purposes, or even the health of our nation purposes, health of our society and stuff like that. Do we want really a Chinese company curating the, you know, your what's your feed for every American, you know? Or
170 million. 170 million Americans have TikTok apps.
Jeez, that's wild.
And so what happened is there became a big movement on TikTok to call your house rep, call your senator. Mm-hmm. They bombarded the phone calls. Mm-hmm. Some of them started making threats that were a little bit too. Don't threaten violence, guys. Threaten to de-seat them. Don't go out there and all of a sudden say, we're going to find you, we're going to track you down and take your kids. That's nuts. But enough came through that you know how the Capitol works. They got staffers that go in and listen to all those voicemails from a bunch of 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids.
Yeah.
Spouting off that this is how I promote my brand. This is how I get out whatever cause that I'm advocating. My counter to the concern about Chinese influence would be they're influencing a whole bunch of other different sectors, whether it be our farming, whether it be Hunter Biden himself. We have China is heavily influencing deciding factors. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why it is any more of a threat for the CCP to have access to our metadata, our metabiotic data, than the FBI. Like, I don't know if I really like how the FBI runs Facebook better than how the CCP runs TikTok.
That's my thing. Like,
well,
I don't trust the American companies.
But that
either.
You know, that doesn't mean that we should still allow the Chinese government to continue to operate in the way they're operating.
But then maybe should we be talking about changing? Maybe shouldn't we change Section 230 so that all of a sudden, if you were in the business of suppressing some content, like during COVID, Facebook suppressed certain comments and they promoted others. Right. You're a news editor. Yeah. That's what a newspaper does. A newspaper gets stories.
Right, publisher versus platform.
Yes.
Right.
And the thing is, if they're partaking in censorship, if they're working with the FBI, if they're in the promotion and demotion business of content, that's an editor. That's not a platform. Like this isn't the public square. Some people are put in a digital gulag.
Totally agree.
Others are amplified.
And you're making great points. For why we should not allow Facebook to do those things, but that still doesn't say why we should continue to allow TikTok to continue.
It is. In a way, my argument's flawed in that my solution is well, TikTok I view as a weapon similar to Facebook.
Right.
And it's like, I don't like any of the people currently who have access to this weapon besides maybe Elon. They're like, maybe X, we can kind of talk on there. Mm-hmm. But all the rest of them, it's like, if you're really that bent out of shape over TikTok, let me tell you about this thing called Facebook. And they got Reels and Instagram, and they stand to make all the money off of this. Mm-hmm. Is their argument is, hey, listen, TikTokers, you just come over here and do the same thing you were doing on your app, on ours.
Yeah, and that might be like realistically what happens. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think there are some, concerns about metadata being owned by foreign governments, right? I mean, you can, obviously we're not at an immediate threat right now, but
you're not going to. How are you going to stop it though? We shop out of the country constantly. Like when you're on Amazon.
Oh, you can't stop. Well, you can't stop. You can't stop everything, but that doesn't mean just because you can't.
And all of our phones are made there.
Just because you can't stop every bad thing doesn't mean you can't stop some. Right. Yeah.
But you don't think these companies in China have taken into account like when they're making the phones for us?
Like if there's like some tracker or something like in all our
just
phones
a way to hack our stuff. I don't think anything we have.
In your defense, China doesn't let us do our Facebook garbage over there. Russia doesn't let us.
Well, yeah,
but they're not free countries. They're not free countries.
Well, and TikTok over in China is like way different than the TikTok. And honestly, that's one of the big things that kind of.
But they're a communist country. We don't want to be like communist.
Well, we don't want to be a communist country, but that doesn't mean we have to be, that doesn't mean we have to allow Chinese people, the Chinese country to run our country.
Run influence.
We can still be a strong country and a free country, but freedom, is not necessarily the freedom to vice. It is also the freedom mostly to virtue. That's the traditional understanding of freedom and liberty. And so, do I think that TikTok does do some good things? Yes. I mean, a lot of, but just,
I'm not a TikTok guy. I don't have a. I'm the libertarian in me is just trying to sit here and trying to make sure that like I'm more concerned about the bill that first it's TikTok, then it's X. Then all of a sudden, first it's a foreign country that we don't like. Next, it might be a domestic actor that is inspiring terror, like Donald Trump and his J6. Well, and we can't let Truth Social. We can't let X.
Well, and that's the thing.
Continue to influence the American public.
It could be that could happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will, right? And we can stop at some point, right? Like
we could reword
what
this bill.
Is that called? The where the
that's not the snowfall. The
yeah, I know. We're like it's on the tip of our tongue. Oh my goodness.
This, then that, then this, then that, and all of a sudden we're all dead at the bottom of the mountain.
Right. Yeah.
Which is where I think they could tighten. If you look at that bill that they passed, the committee, 50 votes, all unanimous. It went like 360-60 in the House. Chuck Schumer can play some games right now and just not bring it up for a vote. Mm-hmm. Trump did this right before COVID hit. He flirted with, we're going to ban TikTok.
Yeah, I remember.
All of a sudden, all the kids come out and go, no, you're not. No, you're not going to do that. And at the end of the day, they're going to vote. They'll be voting in this election. If you were 14 the first time this got floated.
I think the parents just have to have more control. This could be
an activation trigger clause.
Parents just need to have more control over what their kids have on their phones.
That I totally agree with. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's hard to these days, and a lot of people don't. To be honest, right?
But that's the
parents.
You
can use VPNs to just get around it or misrepresent your age. Anyways, a 10-year-old should use a VPN.
Yeah,
and protect themselves.
But you can't put parental locks on apps.
But once again, what kind of 10-year-old, like most 10-year-olds then would not go out of their way to get VPNs to find this thing. You know what I mean? Like they would just accept the fact that they can't get on this thing. And I think that's kind of it's like why make anything illegal? You don't make it illegal because it will never happen again. Like murder is still illegal even though murders happen, but most people will stop doing it if it's illegal. Yeah. Sure, there will be some people who skate around the law or try to find their way around it.
You're always going to have that.
Exactly. That's just human nature. Yeah. No. But that's not necessarily.
Should a Chinese-owned company be allowed to have a TV network?
Or sport or the NBA?
So
they do have quite an influence on the NBA.
They definitely have an influence on the NBA.
That's where it's like I'm with you on the sense that I agree that social media is currently, regardless who's manipulating it, it is dangerous for people young, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
Yeah.
Florida, we talked about the under 14.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the safest, to just kind of keep kids during their most formative years off of this, because you don't know who's in their ear.
Who's in their ear? Literally, their brains are still developing, right? And like that's kind of like I was talking about with how addictive social media and the internet even can be. You know, like it's an issue with people's developing brains, and yeah. So it's. I mean, I don't have kids, but when I have kids, you know, I'm going to probably want to keep them away from that as like much as possible. Now, it's definitely hard and difficult, especially in today's world.
I would say TikTok's an important one to keep them away from, but you don't want to keep them away from the internet.
Well, yeah, for sure. Like in general, forever. I mean, maybe some definitely with limits, obviously.
Yeah, let's be clear. Because I credit the difference between the internet and social media. You can have Google search, and that is still semi-curated too. But a kid could need to learn things and have to be able to search things. But the whole idea of communicating with strangers, somebody in a country 10 hours away, a 9-year-old really doesn't need that. You don't need to be playing video games with somebody in Germany right now.
I don't think a kid needs to be using any sort of social media prior to the age of 16.
Yeah.
It's like driving a car. Yeah, that's when you're trusting your ability to.
But that's on me, though.
Like, you might kill someone else. Yeah. Like that's.
I'm not gonna provide access to it though. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like there's gonna be parental blocks.
In an ideal world, but not having kids, I don't know what it would be like to have a 10 or 11-year-old right now. If you have to send your kids to public schools and everyone in their class is using
that's another
this,
thing too, right?
How are you gonna be the one parent that's like the stick in the mud? At
a minimum, they would be curious, and then they'd probably seek that through their
friends are going to show them all the videos you don't want them to see.
Yeah, so that's definitely something.
That's how they would get it.
Yeah, which is why you shouldn't go to public school.
Yes, which I think hopefully with the advent of AI, that might be the one thing that we can go back to. You can have the best teacher in each subject teach every kid in the state.
Oh, you want AI teachers?
I'm sorry, I want. I don't want it. I'm scared of this. But the AI, think about...
I literally never even thought about this. This is crazy.
Think about what a good AI does. It remembers all of what you've learned. So it can help aid you because it knows what your background is. You've consumed this information. Mm-hmm. A good teacher does the same. You have 25 kids in your class. Some of them are taking information quickly. Some of them aren't. Your ability to work with each student individually is the value of a good teacher. Like they can look in their class, they can realize this kid maybe has an issue reading. Mm-hmm. So that let's do things more visual for them. Maybe this kid has a trouble with this concept. This kid comes from this background. The AI can not only learn that, but it can track you through your entire academic career. So as you're learning, it can schedule, tailor-make lesson plans just for you. And it remembers you were good at this, you weren't good at that. Let's key in on this, let's key in on that. Hopefully, we don't have to worry about the AI touching the kids that we have to worry about in public schools right now. Yeah. It's just like, I don't really want my teachers telling my kids to keep secrets from me. Hopefully, the AI doesn't go down that route.
Hopefully.
But I would think as a parent, you could kind of curate your own perfect teacher.
I've never thought about this before. That's actually
pretty
interesting.
They all said they weren't essential. During COVID, they all stayed home. They couldn't teach. They was too worried they were going to get sick.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not essential... the AI can do it.
I honestly kind of like that because we've been using daycare, and I think I was always under the impression like it should definitely be like a stay-at-home mom situation, but it just wasn't like possible for us. Mm-hmm. So, we actually see a lot of benefit in the daycare. Like he seems to just socially be like leaps and bounds ahead of like stay-at-home mom baby. For the most part. Not all.
Is Cash 3 yet? How old is he?
He's not even 2 yet.
What?
Yeah. Damn. He turns 2 at the end of June.
I compare him with my nephew.
Yeah.
My nephew's just turning 3, and I kind of thought they were around the same time, but they weren't.
That's the thing. It's like he's like kind of like more advanced than a lot of like other kids in like the social realm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's your plans on...
That's not every example,
right?
But like, it just seems... Yeah.
What's your plans on public...
He gets some good genes, so...
Well, I think it's like just the being around a bunch of other kids all the time.
Yeah.
Because he's in a classroom with like a range of ages. Mm-hmm. So he's obviously trying to be like the older kids.
That's actually a great point because that's something that I think we've kind of lost.
Because of big families.
Well, yeah, we've lost because we don't have big
brothers.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have smaller families, and because kids go through, most kids go through age like 4 to 18 only with people their age, maybe 1 year up, 1 year down. I think it's a huge benefit, and I think there's a bunch of studies out there that show it. There's huge benefits to having friends or brothers and siblings and stuff that are multiple years older and younger, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with young adults, even just to have older mentors, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, there's so many benefits to it.
Think back before the Industrial Revolution when we kind of made the education system this grind. It was schoolhouses. Is just you would go and you'd have a high school where you're in class 8th through 12th.
Yeah.
And the teacher's going to teach a general subject and then go around individually. Here's your assignment.
So-
Work with kids that are, and then the younger kids look at the older kids. That's who they generally set the standard for what's cool.
I would like to see, like, instead of our public system the way we have it now, I'd like to see it broken down into smaller school sizes.
Pods.
The way the daycares are. Like, they're just, it's like in one of the old elementary schools in town. Like, that cause when they used to have it.
You get a dozen, a couple
amounts.
dozen families that all agree on the same
You're just with the same
moral
kids.
values.
You grow up with the same class. The older kids, you kind of like, they're a little more advanced. You're
This
trying to be
person
like
teaches
them.
history. This person teaches English. This person teaches math. To all ages.
Yeah.
To also, they're getting a consistent education from someone who has seen them develop.
But I have seen a
through
lot
the
of
years.
benefits in the daycare system
Yeah.
so far, like developmental wise.
I wasn't talking so much daycare as I was grade school.
Yeah,
as
I
I'm
get
more
that,
when
yeah,
I when
yeah. I don't know what that's going to be
because I think if
I'm
you
a little
do
nervous
if
about
you
that.
do if you do see the
You're
teachers
going to find out.
if you do see the teachers union decline, I think you'll see the tutor industry like where you get high quality where people are.
I
paying
would like to
someone
see where I
a
could just
lot.
hire. I would like to just hire somebody.
like
That would
Aristotle.
be really
Yeah.
nice.
Go
Yeah.
old school philosophy.
Yeah, because I mean that's how the aristocrats basically back in the day would educate their kids. They would just hire a local either like
Honestly, if
basically
there was like a
bishop or
Lawyer,
like
diplomat,
tutor,
statesman, somebody who
philosopher, yeah.
If there
Just
was
come
a-
in and teach their kids like
If there was a teacher out there offering her services as like doing like a classroom size, like a small classroom size, and you pay in like for the seat, I would send cash that direction instead
Yeah.
of public school.
Well, was it?
you gotta look at like local. I feel like local like organizations and stuff like that too. Kind of like you're talking about like Christian schools, especially, right?
Yeah.
That's a big way like to find because I know a bunch of families at like local churches up here in Pittsburgh and also now down in Jacksonville, where they've basically just gotten a couple of the families at the church together, and then all the kids kind of go through and like school together to an extent, and the parents all pitch in, and then they get kind of like you're saying like tutors for the groups, and there's different age groups and stuff like that, and the different subjects and stuff. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, there's so many possibilities these days that I think people weren't doing this because I'm sure people were doing stuff like this, but it's much more prevalent now.
AI has been prominent since the early 1990s with Deep Blue and chess. When that was the first time, it was like people can't beat
giant
machines.
machine, right?
Yeah,
the giant one. Yeah,
yeah. That was like all of a sudden the best chess player cannot beat a machine, and it's like because that machine remembers everything. A great chess player can see branches. If I do this, A, B, C is a possibility. If I pick the A of that, they're seeing downfield. This computer.
So we're just gonna have the robot teachers,
I think it makes the most sense.
and then the robot teachers.
As long
can't
as the
complain
parents
about
feel
being on
comfortable that they
camera.
can control the robot, that they can check in on their students' progress and be like, hey, you're not all of a sudden telling them you might be a girl. Like, as long as we don't got to worry about... And that,
Well,
but we have that
what
issue
if
with
I
public
want
schooling. Like, if you send your kid to public school, you got to worry about you get some rogue third-grade teacher who's a mix. And all of a sudden, maybe you're a cat. We don't know. Why limit yourself? Don't do what your parents tell you to do. They're strict. They're mean. They're bullies. It's like all of a sudden your kid
I don't think
I
that's
would
as
love to
prevalent
get
as
a
you think it
teacher.
is.
I would love to get a teacher on here to talk about this.
I would. I've said.
because I have.
I've said
I-
some egregious things about teachers. I did the whole
I
Trump.
have-
they're
I have too,
rapists.
for
They're
sure.
murderers, and some of them might be good people.
But
Like,
I do think that there's something to be said in terms of having a. I haven't even really had to think about this, so this kind of sounds weird even just saying it out loud. But having a human at the head of your classroom, there's something to be said in terms of authority and respect, right?
Yeah.
That is due to teachers. That I feel like you might lose if you have a robot who just goes around and like smacks people you just attach like a ruler to its hand.
We
Like,
sampled it. We sampled it during
yeah.
COVID. During COVID, we saw what it was like to have a teacher that's not in the room, and every kid's just sitting on their laptop, kind of paying attention. I couldn't imagine. I didn't ever had to take any classes during that time frame. Did you?
Oh, during that time, yeah, I was still in law school.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
So I couldn't imagine how attentive I would have been.
Oh, it wasn't that fun, but
No, that's where we're gonna weigh the value of getting people in person, because also you not only have to worry about predatory teachers, the school shootings, and that kind of thing. You got to worry about the influences of other classmates. Public school is not doing well.
Oh yeah, I mean that's true. But
how recent has there been a school shooting? Has the last one been the tranny?
I mean, I'm sure there's been others, like smaller scale ones since then.
I'm trying to remember something big.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was like a big national news story. Not that I can really think of.
No, actually, that was one of the things they said was positive of the lockdowns. So we didn't have as many mass casualties. People weren't traveling as much. It wasn't as bad for the environment. 15-minute cities. Let's go back to the VP pick. Let's reset it. AI. We could go around forever.
AI teachers got me in a whole nother
That's one of my
space, right?
One of my predictions is I believe is if the Democratic Party is going to implode, they're 40% teachers union. Like this party is dominated by this group of people. If that all of a sudden were to restructure, if all of a sudden we realize that college is useless, that like you need to be learning trades.
I think that's
skills.
I think that's why there's such a fight, right, to keep universities important,
relevant.
You don't want to do
but now Biden's going to give free college.
You don't want to do
showing this on sense, saying, listen,
you don't want to do a total flip and just like focus on the trades. You need a mix. We just can't have everyone going for
That's totally true, yeah.
Everyone's going to college.
We have
That's
an
the
oversaturation of college kids right now, but that doesn't mean we should totally get rid of them.
Right.
No, but
we just shouldn't be handing loans to every single person because
that's true.
Just because they.
I think we could be teaching what is taught in college and high school. I think that we could basically expedite the entire education process. So between the ages of 15 and 19, you're learning what traits to benefit you in a job field.
Yeah, I think
you're actually saying like, listen, I want to focus a little more on this subject.
Yeah. When there should definitely be a lot more leeway and a lot more opportunities, like you're saying, to maybe take college level courses basically in high school. In high school. Because honestly, I mean, like I know in my high school, we had the opportunity to take a lot of AP courses if we wanted to, and then try to get that credit applied. But I know like a lot of people I know a lot of people who their schools are smaller or they don't really have that kind of opportunity, right? And that's something that I definitely think should be more available, right, to a wider group of people.
I think you want to get people in the workforce as young as possible. I think when you're waiting till you're 23, 26, to get like an actual
we need
job.
Companies to encourage more hiring.
That's a great point because I totally agree, but for a totally different reason. And honestly, I think that's partially to blame for the fertility crisis that we have. To be honest, because you have people who spend, especially young women, I'm not bashing young women, but it's just a fact, they're the ones that bear the children. So
you want to pursue a career.
Men can have children at much later times. And a problem is in terms of just purely for like the fertility crisis that we have in America, right? And across the whole Western world, to be frank. People go to school and like you're saying, they spend until they're 23, 24, 25, 26 in school. And then, if you're going to spend
6 figures in debt,
if you're going to spend that much, first of all, you're in debt, so you have to work to pay off that debt. And then, second of all, honestly, there's even maybe not like a pride thing, but if you're going to spend that many years in school, you're going to want to at least spend multiple years.
You don't want to get a job that you could have got had you never gone to college.
Exactly,
at all.
Because it's basically it's not humiliating, but it's definitely humility. It would take a lot of humility to admit that.
If it's poker, you invested a bunch of money in a hand that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Like you essentially said, I thought if I put money into this and it would result in X outcome. And it didn't.
Yeah. And so I think that's also, I totally agree. Yeah. We need to get people in the doing good things, but definitely in the workforce.
It's good to feel when you're 19, 20 and you're making money. Like that's an entirely different thing than when you're someone who's going like, yeah, I know I'm going into debt every day by not working and still going to class. But at the end, there's going to be some extra outcome.
And another part of that too is it allows for more innovation, right? Because who are going to be the most risky people are also going to be people who are younger, who maybe have a little bit of more disposable income, because then they have a little bit of money to spend, but they have the time to know like, okay, if I try this like business or something for several years and it's a total flop, then you know what? Then I can kind of reset, and it's not like I've got a mortgage to pay and a kid to take care of.
And they're the ones who pay the most taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Single young men.
Yeah.
They pay the most taxes.
Yeah.
Get them into the workforce early.
Fund our government,
No, it's something that
which Craig is a big fan of.
No, I want to eliminate the taxes. Though.
as we do these episodes, it's going to be curious to see how the education system evolves in the face of this new. What is the ideal educator?
Well, yeah, and not only that, but in terms of how does that impact maybe public versus private schools? Maybe you see some private or charter schools taking more aggressive approaches with sort of AI in the school in the education field. So it could be interesting to see like what parents even like pick that, you know, if they have the option to go to a school that, you know, has a regular teacher versus an AI teacher or something.
That's what I kind of like. And that you seem like you wish you kind of had kids already.
Oh, you know.
No, I do. Me personally, like I would have liked to have started a family by now. Watching what happened in COVID, I realized, I didn't even know what I meant when I thought raising a family. Like some of the things that I thought after regarding education, that would have never been something that ever came up in conversation.
Yeah.
Beforehand.
So that's almost where I agree that I wish I like had a family, but at the same time, I'm glad that I also had this time to
watch
to know, you know what I mean, to gather more knowledge because yeah, like you're saying, if I would have had a family starting 4 years ago or something. I would have had no idea.
Exactly. Like when COVID hit, I would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's like I wouldn't even have known what to have, how to have been prepared for it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice now watching. I have like a dozen friends who are all in different various stages of raising their families, and everyone's doing different things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to sit back and watch. It's like, okay, Craig's got daycare here. You got Dylan homeschooling. You got Alec kind of going more of a public schooling route. I like watching all three here and kind of trying to decide like what would be the best way to go about doing this.
Right. Yeah.
And
I am a fan also of, like we were saying earlier, getting people in the workforce earlier. That could also, you know, if people have more income, they're probably more likely to be able to, you know, settle down and have a family if they want to.
Exactly.
Because I mean, study after study after study, right, shows that young people today in the Western world want to have more kids than they're having, right? Like there's very few, like a small percentage of people that say they wish they like had like the same or even less amount of kids. Most people say that they want to have more kids, but they just but the reason most given for not being able to is the money or the age. And part of the age problem comes from money because they need to work longer to save that money and all that stuff. Yeah. So, oh man, what a mess.
That was a hell of an opening segment there. Talking about we really hit
Our reason for waiting is just, it's a lot of work.
Are you?
It is, yeah.
What's your plan, baby number 2?
We're trying to wait till cash is a little bit bigger.
So we can babysit?
Not really babysit, but
I would think there's a thing of it. He's a little.
Yeah.
He could be like a helping hand. He'll change a diaper.
You might need more kids to money launder out through. Remember, each one of these kids, you can launder money through them. That's the reason to have kids, people. They're little laundromats. You got a little cash laundromat.
Well, like you were saying, you know, if you have enough, they can just do all the chores around the house, right? You know,
so
you go about your day and people pay your kids, and then your kids cover your bills, and it's nothing.
As soon as I can figure out a way to make him an employee of some sort.
He named this kid Cash.
I'm gonna start dumping money into his Roth IRA.
He already has 3 LLCs. Like,
what's the youngest he can be an employee? Would it be like 12?
I don't know. I think it'd be kind of pushing. It might be pushing it to make him part of like an advertisement. Mm-hmm. That might be pushing it.
I see. Yeah. I'm saying babies in advertisements. Yeah, but I don't think they're workers necessarily.
But he has to have some sort of income to have a Roth IRA.
Gotcha.
VP of the company.
I wonder what it would be. It might be 12 these days if you're working for a certain very limited hours.
In your family.
What point
within your family? Yeah. Maybe
because I don't even care. Even if I don't,
no idea.
I don't know.
Even if I'm not ready for
bring back child labor.
A 9-year-old king. 9-year-old king. The 9-year-old is the VP of my entire company.
But I mean, when he's like
his
10
bedtime
years
is
old,
7.
When he's 10 years old and like the apartment needs cleaned out because a tenant moved out, like he can help with that. That should be paid labor.
That's where I like.
I used to do that with my parents.
What Dylan does with the farm. Mm-hmm. That's the best way to teach kids because you can teach them the manual labor. You can teach math. You can go through and actually through skills and chores that are actually kind of labor.
Yeah.
Like helping you out with the farm. They love it. It's we're going to make a game out of setting up a fence around.
Yeah. Well, and having any sort of job, especially at that age, can be a great educational tool, right? Not just in terms of like math, but in terms of responsibility also and stuff like that, like social skills.
Schedule, be on time.
Yeah, exactly. Time management. Yeah.
Simple things that for some reason we are like delaying. It's like an arrested development.
Yeah.
Is you're basically taking people at 18 that are ready to join the world and we're going to say, wait 4 more years and then.
If that, yeah.
Go join a fraternity and get drunk for 4 years and then we'll see where you're at.
Right. Yeah.
Don't know the value. We'll see.
Yeah.
VP picks. This is going to be big in this election.
Let's get back to
let's get back. We've gotten that taken care of, and I think that's important. Talking about the AI with RFK's pick, Nicole Shanahan. She's, I think, 38 years old. She's independently wealthy. She was a big Democratic donor. Mm-hmm. People are drawing ties and things to Soros and that. That does not appear to be totally the case, that she's compromised any more than someone like Vivek. But her husband was the VP of Google maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
It's a good way to be independently wealthy.
Her last name's Shanahan. She's a quarter Irish and a half. I don't remember what Asian country she says she came from.
I don't remember.
But
either.
She's definitely, she looks Asian. Very good speaker. Mm-hmm. When I listened to her intro, and she got 1 million people live on X. Like people watching the RFK broadcast. Yeah. He went for 45 minutes. She went for half an hour. At first, she's never ran for office. Mm-hmm. So you could kind of detect nerves. Once the crowd started cheering, she got comfortable. She went off the script, started speaking from the heart. I'm open-minded to her. At first I did not like it because I thought that RFK was going to pick Tulsi. Mm-hmm. And he started it with like, she's a surfer, she's young, she's a trailblazer. And I'm like, okay, Tulsi is it. And it's like, oh, you pumped. That was an intentional pump fake RFK. I do not appreciate that. She's not a surfer like Tulsi's a surfer. Tulsi's like a pro surfer, not like someone who took lessons once. Upon more like thinking about it, Tulsi was kind of the same as RFK. I think Tulsi actually might be a better VP for the DJT.
Oh yeah,
I would, because
and that might if she ends up being his VP, that's probably obviously why she wouldn't become.
She might have turned him down. RFK might have asked her, and she might have said, "Listen, I'm on Trump's short list."
Yeah,
she serves the counter to Trump is this is why I want her for RFK. Is she's basically a bulletproof vest. Mm-hmm. Is if they're actually concerned of assassination, which I am as a fan of them both. Is that the DNC hates them so much that if they could take them out, they would.
Wait, which one? RFK or
Trump?
DJT?
DJT or RFK?
All the above.
I think either one of them, if they could figure out, even Joe. Joe is a tight security team. I think if the DNC could just get these guys out, they would. Mm-hmm. Sorry, there's a long history of assassinations in this country, and people protect themselves. So Tulsi is, even if you did take out Trump or you did take out Kennedy, they don't like Tulsi any more than they do them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what's the point of taking Trump out? So you get a young Tulsi who's going to be able to run 2 more times, maybe get 10 years. That's the last thing they want.
Yeah.
Like that. So if I'm Trump, I'm saying I pick her. There's no way they're going to take me out. You don't want to deal with this beast. Yeah. You don't want this to be the replacement. This isn't like Kamala Harris coming in for Joe.
Yeah. Although, and I do think there is something to be said for that. But also, obviously, Tulsi, provides, at least some good. I don't want to say like cover, but I suppose that could be for like any VP pick, right? For like Trump's weaknesses, right? She's a little bit more appealing to the independent
military
background, female, so she appeals.
Ethnic? Going against Kamala Harris and Nicole Shanahan. No, this is important. Is you going against 2 immigrant women.
She checks boxes, which, and unfortunately, in today's political world, you need to be checking as many boxes as you can.
It's a game. Yeah. And she's been doing it for a while too. She's used to go and listen. I don't define myself as a female candidate.
Yeah, so she knows what she's doing. She's very intelligent. She's pretty well spoken. A lot and some decent experience. Yeah, so I think Tulsi would be a pretty solid pick for Trump. I don't know if that's necessarily what's going to happen though. I think, to be honest, the reason why I would say that Tulsi would not be the pick is because then that's a very obviously anti-establishment ticket. And I think that's one of the reasons why Mike Pence was so appealing in 2016 was that he covered 2 big bases with Trump. And the 2 were maybe the Christian evangelical types who were maybe a little nervous about the fact that Trump used to be...
3 divorces.
Used to be a Democrat.
Judge
right. stuff like that. And also, you know, Mike Pence has been a politician for a long time. He's got more
Calls this woman mom.
Yeah, he's got more feet in that box. You know, he's he checks off.
He was a radio host, Midwestern radio.
Yeah,
host at that
like
time, ex-governor.
the establishment's maybe a little more okay. Like we like Pence, you know, kind of thing. So I could see Tulsi being good for some things, but she might that could be a problem being a wholly anti-establishment ticket. You know,
has Trump though kind of absorbed those aspects of Pence? Where at first it's like, okay, Trump has no political experience besides as a donor. Mike Pence is a governor. Oh, God, Trump's flamboyant, and he's not exactly when he starts reading out of the Bible, quoting scripture, the fact checkers are all over it. Like, they're going to nail him. Mike Pence secures that. He locks down that Midwest base that just doesn't necessarily trust the man in a suit. I think Trump's kind of... I don't think he can get Nikki Haley supporters. Like, I think if you were Nikki Haley, Chris Christie,
I think some of them might just stay home, to be honest.
Sure.
You know? Yeah. Or vote RFK out of spite, you know.
But I don't know if picking anybody more establishment would get them on board. Like, if you were to pick, like, maybe, let's say, a Tim Scott,
yeah.
Do you think that would add maybe?
Maybe, because you see people, especially once primaries are over, to be honest. Probably not Vivek, because he's the same problems. He's not an establishment guy. He doesn't have any established political ties. You know, he's a very charismatic guy, and he speaks very well. I have a lot of problems with some of his stances, but you know, he will probably find his way into the administration somehow if Trump wins, right?
I think so.
And rightfully so, because he, you know, is a very intelligent guy, like I said, and all that stuff. So, but in terms of VP pick, he doesn't bring anybody else to the table, you know. And kind of the same thing for DeSantis to an extent, which is why I think he's a little lower on the chart. I think he could still possibly do it, but he still, kind of like we talked about earlier, he checks off a lot of similar boxes to Trump, so many that it's like, who is the VP? What corner are you locking up? You know, I think Tim Scott could be decent. You know, he's fine. He's nothing special, but like
I'm right with you on Vivek and
what's the name
DeSantis
of that? What's the name of that?
I don't know if they add more votes.
I
like them, but they're almost
right,
better.
I like them.
Like I want to see Vivek at maybe a cabinet position involving AI. Maybe we put him at something tech related. He might be the one to redo Section 230.
Yeah. Well, and I want DeSantis to finish out his term as governor in Florida. To be frank, I mean, I would be totally fine with. You know, this might be a hot take, but I would be totally fine, because the reason why he would have to step down is because of term limits in the Florida Constitution.
He could move.
I'd be fine with them making it 3 terms.
I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with him in the Senate.
I'm totally fine.
I'd be fine if he took Rubio or
that's my problem though. Is Scott? Rick Scott. Yeah, that's my problem. Is I like both of those guys too. You know, like. Florida's got like a great delegation, you know, in terms of guys at the top.
They got a bench. They got a bench.
Yeah.
Like the Florida Republican scene is.
Yeah, Florida GOP is one of the strongest, I think, in the country. Them and North Carolina, honestly, are probably like two of the strongest in the whole country.
Yeah. Maybe I'd also include Kentucky with Rand Paul and Mitch being in Massey. But didn't Kentucky just lose the governor's race last year or 2 years ago? Right? They have a Democrat that's kind of like our Shapiro up here that I can't remember his last name. Bashir, Andy Bashir is the governor down in. He's good. He's going to be a tough competitor. He's someone that if you took out all the infighting in the DNC and just picked legitimate candidates, he'd be tough. If you saw Shapiro. They're no Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmore or Hochul or they're pretty moderate people. I don't agree with them, but I'd be most nervous going into debates with them. I think they're the Democrats that actually have the most to gain, highest ceiling, I guess.
Right, the most bandwidth, basically. Yeah,
and that's where I'm wondering other candidates for Trump's VP.
Well, who's the governor from? Is it South Dakota or North Dakota?
Kristi Noem.
Kristi Noem.
I would put her out. My order. Right?
I think she's high on that list. Once again, I have a lot of problems with her, but I can see why she would be. I can see why she would be picked. If that makes sense.
She never closed. She's very good looking. Great story. she gave one of those great convention speeches that are like all time, that kind of bring you to tears a little bit. Like she's talking about growing up, her dad dying when she was young, and she took over the farm. Solid candidate. There was an issue with an affair she might have had with Corey Lewandowski.
Yeah, there was that. There was also like a couple of bills that she didn't sign. Like the legislature, I think, passed one of those like no men and women's sports bills, and she vetoed it. Couple other things she said, I think, about I want to say it was illegal. Maybe immigration was the other one that she was like wasn't really a great sentence on or two. But
there was definitely an issue with the transports.
Yeah.
Issue. But
yes, that was another
one.
Yeah.
It was a nuance. I don't know how much it would affect in the grand scheme of things. I'd put her as my number 3. I would like to see Tulsi. Rand Paul, I think, would be a great pick, but he's also very valuable in the Senate. That's one thing that we have to position in is when you have a 50-50 Senate, these guys are very powerful.
Yeah.
So just moving them up the VP means you're going to have to replace them in a new election.
Well, yeah, and there's no guarantee that they even win the presidency.
I'd rather push Rand Paul as Speaker of the Senate if we could take that majority. Because there were more Democratic seats up for grabs than there are Republicans.
Well, yeah, the chances of did we want to talk about some of the different Senate races?
Yeah, definitely. There's a whole bunch of them. Is there one you want to key on in particular?
I don't know. There's a couple interesting ones coming up. I mean, you got Ohio, Arizona, right? What's Montana's probably a huge
Tester.
one. Yeah.
John Tester's up.
West
we
Virginia,
have Bob
right?
Casey up here.
I mean,
Sheldon Brown in Ohio.
That's going to be
the Ohio seat.
Big one, yeah.
Katie Hobbs is the governor down in Arizona. Kerry Lake is the Senate challenger for the Republicans.
Yeah.
Sinema's stepping down. They're running a rookie from the House.
Yeah.
So it's California.
That was a very interesting race when Sinema was in it because it was almost like RFK, like who is this third party challenger going to take more votes away from? Especially because like it's very rarely for American politics a like significant third party challenger.
Are you a Kerry Lake fan, or do you think she's too much?
I mean, I think that for the most part, her like policy positions are good, and so I like that. And I think that, in terms of personality, I don't really care too much about people's personalities. I care more about like, are your policies good or bad, and can you win elections or not? Right? Those are the two things. So the question that I suppose is with her is, does her personality get in the way of her maybe winning elections?
Trump-like.
Right.
MTG, Matt Gaetz.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind like MTG or Matt Gaetz because they win elections constantly,
Yeah.
And to be frank, they're also mostly very good on policy positions.
Totally agree.
But
House is big difference from the Senate.
Yeah.
That's where.
Well, and Kerry Lake, I mean, let's be honest, right? Like she lost a very contentious governor's race by like less than a point.
Maricopa
like
County.
A point and a half,
that recount went on for months.
The recount went on for months.
Like that was Maricopa County will forever be seared in my room because I've never been there. I don't know if I ever will be.
Though we all know it now.
God, I would just watch polls for hours on end. Just video camera stock footage.
But yeah, so I think I don't know. I mean, I think that she's got a great opportunity to win this election, and she could possibly pull it out. And if she pulls it out, then it flips the script, right? I mean, I think about, for example, like Richard Nixon, right? Like he lost the presidency to JFK, and then he ran for governor, I think, in California, and he lost that. And he literally gave a speech after that, and was like, "You're not gonna have Richard Nixon to kick around anymore." And he was like yelling at the media, and then he came back and won.
I wish the exact quote there.
Yeah, it's something like that, but yeah.
Kind of like a say goodbye to the bad guy.
Yeah, basically.
It's like, you're not gonna have.
Yeah. Richard, but then he came back, and so
Joe Biden lost 3 times for presidency before he came back and won.
Right. Yeah. So you can.
Trump's gonna be a one winner, one loser.
Yeah. All you need to do is win, and that can kind of. It's like with sports, You're a loser until you're a winner, and then you're the smartest person in the room, right? And until then, you're a terrible candidate or terrible at putting a team together.
I'm trying to think of a couple more races here. California has that. The LA Dodgers.
What's his name? Garvey? Steve Garvey?
Yeah, Steve Garvey.
Yeah.
Steve Garvey, an old pitcher from the Dodgers, running as a Republican for...
Which is cool. He'll get 45%.
Maybe.
That's fine.
Kennedy's going to be interesting in California. That's where that Shanahan, she's from Oakland. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Democrats that keep voting for recalls. Those are all Kennedy supporters. If the Republicans see that Kennedy as their possible Make America Great Again candidate in California, I really think when I'm looking at RFK's positioning, he's trying to take that Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah,
like those
Southwest,
moderates kind of
libertarian, you like leaning. They got easier ballot access, a lot more independents, squishy partisans on both sides. Like, I didn't even really think of that. I thought he'd be going after mostly the Northeast. If I'm Kennedy, I'm thinking Boston. I'm trying to take New Hampshire, Vermont.
The name is so big up there.
Maybe New York. Put that on the map. Like those are more where I thought he was playing. He seems to be doing well in the Southwest.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Well, and that will also, even without cinema, that will still be interesting to see how that impacts it, right? Because especially nowadays, there's a lot less ticket splitting than there used to be. But when you have an RFK on the ballot, let's say RFK gets, even if it's like a smaller turnout than a lot of polls are saying,
15%, 10%.
Let's say he gets 10 in Arizona. Who do those 10 people vote for Senate?
Yes.
You know, that's going to be something to really think about. But
one of the flaws I kind of see in the third party, I've always dreamed of having a good third party candidate. I think you've got a rundown ticket. You need to have an independent House rep,
a whole party,
an independent Senate, like just someone there, so that when you go in, it's like if you do elect an independent president, they can't work if they can't get the House of Representatives or the Senate.
Oh, and they're not going to be able to do anything. Yeah,
but if you get 10 House of Reps and 3 senators, you effectively control each branch because neither one will be able to get half. So if the Republicans or the Democrats want to run the House and they're split 50-50. The independents with their 10 votes decide who they go to.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. Yeah. Well, and a lot of other countries do like proportional representation, right? For that reason. So like you can have a party that gets 10% and they get 10% of the House.
My goal would be to be the wrench in the gears.
That's why they call him a spoiler, and I'm saying I don't think RFK is quite spoiling anything.
I would just make
he's giving us another option.
Freezing halt.
It's going to be interesting.
For 4 to 8 years. We'll see how the country likes it.
I'm going to go past. I thought it is ironic that the DNC that puts out House Resolution 1, which is basically everybody dead, alive, illegal, everyone gets to vote, now doesn't want to allow third-party access. Well, the DNC, the party of every one person, one vote.
Of course, because it's a legitimate challenge to their power.
Now, all of a sudden, you don't got a right.
It's all power.
You only get a right to vote is if you pick what we pick. And if you don't pick what we pick, then just shut up and go home.
Well, it's really true. Like, once you kind of, I don't know, like, have the political epiphany that a lot of the people who are just into it and the things that they do, whether or not whatever they say, right, what they do is to maintain their power. Above all else, no matter, that's why politicians are quote unquote liars, because one day they'll say one thing and the next day they'll say the exact opposite, kind of like you're saying, because it just depends on what their interests are.
And I think that's a perfect moment to bring up the diddler.
Oh no! No, Diddler needs his own separate.
Oh,
I think Diddler should be
separate episode.
Yeah,
a whole nother episode.
This is Epstein, just of the hip hop industry.